Good morning, magandang umaga po. Ito ang programang Bawal ang Pikon. Get it straight with Daniel Razon. Panahon po natin ngayong umaga, appointed Secretary ng Department of Foreign Affairs sa pagpasok po ng Duterte administration. Ano ang mga marching orders niya at ano mga plano niyang gawin? Let's welcome to the program, incoming Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary Perfecto, Yasay Jr. Boss Jun, morning. Good morning po. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Please have a seat. Kumusta ka na?
Mabuti. Salamat. At,
nice to see you again.
Yes, thank you.
And mukhang looking good na, pati yung health mo.
Yes.
So, primarily, nakabalik ka na talaga sa... You're back in the saddle.
That's correct. Mahigit ng 5 taon akong... since the last time I was diagnosed with what I had, no? Malignancy. I completed my treatment and my last checkup was only about 2 weeks ago. At sinabi ng aking doctor, you've got a clean bill of health. So,
that's nice,
complete
that's nice.
remission. So, I'm happy.
So,
Masaya ako.
ready to face the challenges?
Well, palagay ko, nilagay ako dito ng Panginoon eh. So, I'm ready.
So, umpisa natin. Anong initial na plano mo at ano ang marching order ni President Duterte sa'yo?
Well, wala naman tayong sinasabing marching order other than the fact na anong sinasabi ng ating saligan batas would be how we would conduct our foreign policy. Diba? Sinasabi ng ating saligan batas ay yung ating foreign policy ay dapat magiging independent. Diba? And in carrying out that independent foreign policy, the paramount national interest must always be considered and pursued. So, yan ang sinasabi ng ating saligan batas and also to make sure that we adhere to the principles of international law, the rule of law, principles of peace, justice, equality, and amity to all nations. So, yan ang dapat natin gagawin in carrying out our foreign policy. Ngayon, yung ating Pangulo is the director and orchestrator of that foreign policy through the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. And it is in that concept na kailangan natin siguro baguhin lang yung mga strategy, anong mga priorities, anong karapat-dapat natin gagawin. So, in that light, sinabi ng magiging Pangulo natin na kailangan bigyan natin ng diin yung problema ng ating overseas Filipino workers, particularly. At saka yun ang number 1 priority na sinasabi niyang gagawin natin. Ang idea natin ay that tutulungin natin yung ating overseas Filipino workers from the time na pinoproseso pa lamang natin yung kanilang papeles para magtrabaho abroad. From here, yung serbisyo na bibigay natin ay talagang mabilis, adequate and efficient all the way hanggang makakarating sila sa kanilang pupuntahan. At doon din, titignan natin na yung mga karapatan nila bilang workers ay masusunod at it will be upheld. No? So these are the kinds of things na bibigyan natin ng priority on.
But having said that, kasama sa tinutulak ng Presidente Duterte yung mahigpit na paglaban sa drugs.
Yes.
And we know for a fact na may mga nahatulan tayong kababayan na nai-involved sa drugs sa ibayong dagat. Well, meron mga campaign para sagipin sila, meron mga blood money na iniipon para matubos sila. Is that the same thing na gagawin pa rin ngayong panahon ng Duterte administration? O ang sino mang masangkot na kababayan natin Pilipino sa drugs, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo, dapat sa inyo putulan ng ulo, yung mga ganun?
Hindi naman. Alam mo, may karapatan din ang lahat, lalo na yung ating overseas Filipino workers na masangkot dyan sa mga drugs. So, ang instructions natin dyan ay talagang tutulungan natin from the very beginning. So, umpisa pa lamang titignan natin at alamin natin kung ano naging problema dyan. Maybe very close monitoring tayo dyan sa when yung isang worker, let's say, ay naakusa na nagiging mule or carrier ng drugs or dealer ng drugs. So sa umpisa pa lang magtitignan natin na yung proseso ng hustisya ay talagang yung mga karapatan ay nare-recognize, no? And then we will also look into the merits of the case, no? Titignan natin kung ano ang nature ng involvement and whatever services we can give along that line. Of course, ang problema natin is pag pinoproseso yan, the criminal prosecution abroad, hindi tayo makikialam, no? We cannot interfere in the justice system of that particular country where the person is charged. But in any event, it does not prevent us from providing for the services that our Filipino workers deserve.
So hindi naman sila mangangamba na papabayaan na lang sila once na ang kaso nila ay drugs?
Hindi. Talagang tutulungan natin yan. Tutukan natin yan up to the end of the process. No? In fact, marami dyan na nagkakaroon na conviction. We still continue to be part of efforts in making sure na the execution of the sentence will not be carried out, will be commuted and things like that. Karapatan ng gobyerno natin, ng pamahalaan natin gagawin yan. No? Yung sinasabi mong blood money, that's a little bit controversial. Dahil in some jurisdictions, particularly in the Middle East,
yes,
no, yung mga nagiging biktima ng ating overseas Filipino worker concerned, the only way they could escape penalty, lalo na pag death penalty ang nai-impose, is babayaran nila yung
blood money. Yes, yes.
And while the DFA had made arrangements in some instances to pay for it as part of the services that we extend, minsan palaki ng palaki.
Yes.
Ang blood money na bibigay. So we will look into that and see how we could more efficiently address that kind of a setup. I hope that is more of an exception than the general rule.
Well, knowing you, alam ko na prior to this, naggawa ka na ng assignment mo. Marami ka ng mga ni-review and kinalkal mo na yung dapat mong kalkalin. Are you happy with the performance ng mga embassies natin abroad? For certain, you've been to different countries and nakikita na din ninyo yung kanilang situation doon. What do you think are the things that we need to improve?
Well, I'm sure there is always a need for improvement, no? But before venturing into answering that question more at length, gusto kong ipahayag na it is my personal view that the Department of Foreign Affairs is one of the most professional and career-oriented department of government. So generally, as a rule, makikita mo yung appointments dyan of people.
Yes.
Let's say diplomatic posts abroad are based precisely on performance, on qualifications, on competence, on experience. Yan. So, having said that, of course, marami din diyang mga nahuhulog sa maliliit na cracks na tinatawag natin, no? That we have to address. Yeah. Marami tayong narinig din ng complaint about certain consular officers who have reneged in the performance of their duties, particularly na magbibigay tulong o serbisyo sa ating overseas Filipino workers. We are also trying to address that. In fact, the present leadership of the DFA continues to address that. Yeah. So there will always be, I'm sure, these kinds of complaints, but I honestly feel at this point in time that they are more of an exception. But nevertheless, tututukan natin yan. No, let's try to make sure na we continue working on the needs of our overseas Filipino workers, and yet at the same time improving the quality of service and our professional expertise in doing so.
Pero kung kadalasan ang nangyayari sa DFA, nagiging tagasalo sila at nagiging reactive na lang kayo for the reason na meron diyang kasing POEA, meron diyang OWA, merong kasi yung PIDOS ginagawa ng POEA, wala naman sa ilalim ng Department of Foreign Affairs yan. With regard to immigration things, nandiyan dyan yung dapat sana ay isang stage pa, no, para yung mga kababayan nating OFW maprotektahan din. How do you intend to corroborate with these agencies?
Well, yun din ang ngayon pa lamang ay pinag-uusapan na namin yan, how we can really make our job more efficient and effective through a coordinative process,
Yes,
diba?
yes,
So tama yung sinasabi mo. Most of the time, the way I understand it is nalalaman na lang natin na nakakaproblema yung ating overseas Filipino workers na nandoon na.
Yes.
Halos makukumpleto na. Nalalaman natin yung experience ni Mary Jane Veloso, for instance, in Indonesia, na no less than President Widodo ang nagsasabi, bakit ngayon lang final na yung sentence, na-affirm na kanilang Korte Suprema, bakit ngayon lang natin tinututukan ito?
Correct.
Yeah, so, these are the things we're trying to avoid through that coordinative process. From the very beginning, titignan na natin yan. So, ako, offhand, tinitignan ko na one of the problems ng ating mga overseas Filipino workers ay yung sometimes, because of illegal recruitment and the like,
that's true.
uma-apply lang sila ng tourist passport. Di ba? Puro yung intention nila pagdating abroad, maghahanap ng trabaho at doon sila na-exploit ng mga illegal recruiters. So dito pa lamang, inuumpisahan na yan. But then, pagdating doon, let's say, papunta sila ng Singapore when in fact ang destination nila is somewhere else for some criminal activities. Dahil ang kinakarga nila ay yung ordinary passport that will enable them to travel anywhere.
Correct.
And that is also a weak point for them. So I was thinking, to legitimize the whole process for overseas Filipino workers, we make a special passport for them. Diba?
Okay.
We make a special passport for them where special privileges even in the application of that passport will be made because they are really our economic heroes at the end of the day. They really help us boost our economy and keep it alive, in fact, in various crisis situations in the past. So, kung mailagay natin yung special kind of passport for them, and they can only use that passport to go to the destination where they're supposed to work. Diba?
So parang specific lang yan.
Yeah, pag let's say magkaroon sila ng transit let's say sa Hong Kong before going to some other place. Pagdating sa Hong Kong, the authorities will know that they have to continue on with their trip to their destination. So in that way, hindi sila magagamit ng other criminal elements. And if they will be entering another country that is not the destination as shown in the passport, they need an authority from the consul or some other government authority in the place that they were supposed to work.
Are you not making it harder for them to...
It's not making it harder for them. These are just plans. No, I'm just looking into it. I am not saying that I will implement it, but I think we have to design a system that will make our overseas Filipino workers less vulnerable to this kind of exploitation and abuse. Yeah. Dahil ang ating overseas Filipino workers talagang kumakapit sa patalim.
Yes.
When they go abroad, they do not go abroad simply because they are looking for jobs. They're going abroad as economic refugees.
That's right.
And when you look at that as economic refugees, umaalis sila dito sa bansa dahil wala silang mahanap na trabaho, walang sapat na trabaho. And they are willing to go abroad to look for any job na basta't lang mabuhay yung kanilang pamilya. No, they'll be able to carry on a trade or jobs that will support their families that they leave behind. No? So, because of that, nakikita natin na they become immediately a natural subjects for exploitation and abuse. So, kahit na anong klaseng serbisyo na ibibigay mo sa kanila when they are already there, that will not solve the problems of OFWs because the solution lies here. It lies here in the Philippines by making sure that we're able to address the economic conditions of our country so that one day, hindi na sila pupunta abroad to look for jobs. In fact, those who are abroad will already come back because jobs are available back here and they will no longer be subject to the exploitation or abuse. But that to me is the long-term solution if you want the complete solution to our problems of our overseas Filipino workers.
And long-term problem na rin yun eh. Kasi lahat ng administrasyon, problema na yan.
Exactly.
And
kasi
until now,
ang problema
it's
natin
not been
dito
solved.
sa economic conditions natin sa bansa, at ito na rin i-address ng ating Pangulo, is that there are economic and political structures that have to be dismantled and replaced because they are the ones that generate and engender the inequalities that our people suffer. No? Nawawalan sila ng equal opportunities. Concentration of wealth is in the hands of very few, including wealth creation opportunities. Hindi democratized yan eh. So if we address that vigorously and make sure that these inequalities will be eliminated, if more than just minimizing them, palagay ko we can do it. We need the political will to do it.
Well, with all due respect, Secretary, yung pag-i-introduce ng bagong passport, wala akong problema dun eh. Pero ang isang problema, yun yung passport lang ngayon. Pahirapan pa ng pag-i-issue eh. Passport na bago, pag-uusapan na naman natin. How are you going to address itong problema natin sa passport, pag-i-issue ng passport, nuknukan ng tagal pumila pagka tapos magpa-appointment lang. Siguro, meron ba na mga nagkuha sa inyo ng passport? May experiences kayo dyan, di ba? Well, paano mo tinitingnan ito, Paiksen? Before you answer that, we'll pause for a break. Ito ang programang Bawal ang Pigon. Get it straight with Daniel Razon. Tsaka pa rin po natin, Perfecto June Yasay, incoming Secretary ng Department of Foreign Affairs. So sir, meron tayong iniisip, bagong passport para sa mga OFW. Yung regular passport lang natin ngayon dito, pahirapan pa. Kasi di nyo naman makikakailaho sa akin yun. Kasi I'm a frequent traveler. So madalas ako nagpapalit ng passport dahil madalas nauubos yung pahina ng passport ko. So mahirap din po talaga. Is there anything na iniisip ninyo para mas mapaiksi yung proseso, mas mapadaling pag-i-issue ng passport at mawala na yung kakulangan natin mismo dito sa minsan papel pa lang, usapin na po yan?
Well, in fairness to the present leadership ng ating Department of Foreign Affairs, ay talagang matagal na nilang ina-address itong problema na ito.
Yes.
Right? And one of the solutions that I think is correct in their approach to the problem is they shifted from the old passport format into what we now call as the electronic passport.
Yes, yes,
diba?
yes.
Mayroon ng electronic chip dyan sa passport mo na lahat ng informasyon na kailangan in your travel life nandun na. It's computer readable, machine readable. So, yan ang ano. Our problem is, because of that transition, we have operational problems as well, no? Umpisa yung pilahan.
Yes.
That has already been addressed incidentally. Dahil ngayon, ay pag nakapag-set ka ng appointment, on the day that you go there for your appointment, ay talagang less than 3 hours you're processed for that. Yeah, that's the general rule. But kahapon, for instance, ay nakakuha ko ng text sa isang tao sa Iloilo na sinasabi niya, he was there, walang pilahan, apply siya, pero ang computers were down. Yeah. Now that's a problem that not even our Department of Foreign Affairs can solve on its own, because that probably says a lot about our internet highways, bandwidth, and so on. Yeah, in the area na nandoon yung isang terminal, pag talagang that becomes a problem now. How do we address that? We just have to improve the entire internet network in the country, including expanding our bandwidth and everything like that, no? And then also provide internet services, better internet services insofar as the other areas where we have consular services na in-expand din naman ng DFA. Mayroon tayo sa Lucena. And I understand even in Lucena alone, napakarami mga passport applications eh. And that is good, no? Dahil nakikita natin, yung mga tao hindi na kailangan pumunta sa Manila. Mayroon tayo in areas, even in Mindanao, na mayroon tayong consular services. So, while we have addressed the pila, yung paghihintay sa passport application ay we continue to address because it cannot seem to be solved overnight. But I hope that, sinasabi naman ni Secretary Almendras that they have gradually addressed the problem, and on day one that we assume office, that will be the list of the concerns that I will be dealing with. So I would hope that that in fact will be the case. But in any event, when I sit and there should still be other problems along that line, we will address it thoroughly. But I'd like to understand fully what the problems are. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng pumasok na lang kaagad and then step on the shoes of other people simply because we will be the incoming Secretary of Foreign Affairs. So, I'd like to.
Pero nakaupo na po kayo with the outgoing secretary.
Oh, maraming beses na. And we had been, napakaganda. Ako, I have a very healthy respect for Secretary Rene Almendras, a very professional guy. And I know that he is dedicated to his job. And I trust him in the sense of what he's doing and telling me what he wants to achieve before he turns over the department to me.
So what's the biggest problem na sinabi niya po sa inyo? June, eto pinakamabigat na problema ang haharapin mo pag take over mo.
Wala naman kaming pinag-uusapan na ganyan. Sinasabi niya lang, I'm trying to smoothen out the problems, especially with respect to the passport. Pero I know without even saying it, I've spoken to also former Secretary Albert Del Rosario, and we've discussed this also. To my mind, the biggest challenge and the biggest problem that I'll be facing will be our West Philippine Sea issue. That is something that, if not handled properly, can exacerbate the tensions. And I know that we have to do more than what is being done, especially in terms of making sure na yung sinasabi ng ating saligang batas na we should always try to resolve our disputes in a peaceful manner. Mandate ng Constitution yan. War as an instrument of national policy is prohibited. So, Jan, that will test our patience and test our ability to live by the mandate of the Constitution.
So having said that, kasi nakita mo naman ang positioning ni President Duterte, especially during the campaign period, to the point na magje-jet ski siya. Okay, I have known you to be a very diplomatic person, pero hindi ka naman free dun sa pagbibitaw ng mga maaanghang din na salita na alam kong may tama din naman, lalo na kung pinag-uusapan ng problem natin sa West Philippine Sea. Paano ngayon kung halimbawa ang nangyari ay pumabor halimbawa sa atin ang desisyon at talagang ito ay ibinibigay sa atin? Paano mong i-relay yan doon sa mga Chinese people?
Unang-una sa lahat, gusto kong ipahayag sa ating mga nanonood ngayon at sa ating kababayan na yung issue ng West Philippine Sea na sinumiti natin sa Arbitral Tribunal is not an issue of territorial ownership of the disputed area or the exercise of sovereignty over that area. It is simply limited on our rights under the United Nations Law of the Sea to have an exclusive economic zone over that 200-mile area outside from our shores in exploiting it exclusively for the benefit of the Filipino people,
which they do not recognize,
which China did not want to submit because they say, ang claim naman ng China, which they have not submitted anyway to the Arbitral Tribunal, is yung area na yan ay sa kanila, based on historical rights. Pero yung sa atin ang titignan natin, what are we trying to pursue? And I think along this line, we may have a way at which we can defer complicated issues like who owns this property, put it in the back burner right now, and see kung we can negotiate, for instance, certain terms that will be mutually beneficial for all country claimants in that area, and we can work together for the mutual benefit of the countries involved. Now, let's say, yung desisyon ng Arbitral Tribunal will be in our favor. Ibig sabihin, i-declare nila, yes, yung 9-dash line ay itabi muna natin yan dahil we do not have jurisdiction to decide on that. Pero we recognize your right that this area is part of your 200-mile economic zone. Unfortunately, it overlaps with the other claims of other people. Let's say that will be the decision. Now, in that respect, maliwanag na sinasabi ng Korte, even as we have exclusive economic rights over this area, that area is still international waters. No? It must be free for navigation. And the maritime security of that place must also be assured. Diba? Hindi ibig sabihin yan na, uy, kayo lahat dyan, alis, amin yan. No? Yan ang dapat alamin ng ating kababayan.
So you're saying now, Secretary, na hindi tayo ngayon magpupursu halimbawa, in any of these cases na meron tayo, alam naman natin, meron tayong problema talaga ng may umaangkin sa inaari natin. Hindi tayo magpupurso ng ganon.
Hindi.
Parang panatilihin na lang natin dito during the term ni President Duterte, panatilihin na lang muna natin ang usapin, magamit natin yung pwede natin magamit kung sakasakali, but not actually pursuing to claim what is ours.
We cannot do that because kung sinumiti natin yan sa UNCLOS, i-dismiss ka agad ng UNCLOS Arbitral Tribunal yan. Dahil wala silang jurisdiction
Yes,
sa issue na yan. So, even if we wanted to, hindi natin pwedeng magagawa yan. Kaya, yung position, for instance, ni Justice Carpio, in terms of coming up with a very well-documented argument na yung some of the disputed territories niyan, including areas in the Spratly, Scarborough Shoal or Panatag Shoal ay sa atin based on historical maps, is to counter the claim of the Chinese on their 9-dash line demarcation na yung area na yan ay sa kanila rin. Pero yung issue na yan ay is not part of the issue brought before the Arbitral Tribunal. Because if it were brought there, wala tayong magagawa. So, yan talagang very clearly and naturally, hindi mo pwedeng i-address yan ngayon. You could put that in the back burner. You see?
So, during the term ng administrasyon ng Duterte, you're saying na we will be putting that in the back burner?
Oh yes, because we...
So wala na tayong kumbaga, ito lang, kasi itong nasa arbitral
It's so
tribunal
far as ownership, ha?
Yes,
Okay.
different yan.
Yeah,
With regard to ownership, alam naman natin na ang feeling ng maraming kababayan natin, nabubuli tayo. Dahil wala pa nga pinag-uusapan dyan kung sino ba talaga may-ari. Eto na ngayon, yung isa nagtatayo na ng kung ano-ano dyan, sinisira na yung mga coral reefs natin, tinatambakan at gumagawa ng isla. So, how do you position your country doon sa ganung situation?
Yes. Alam mo, mayroon tayong, for instance, islands diyan sa Spratly na or features sa Spratly na ino-occupy natin. And we're doing everything that we can do to make sure that our foothold on these features will be strong. Di ba? Mayroon tayong sa Pag-asa Island, mayroon pa tayong mayor dyan, mayroon tayong community dyan. So, ginagawa natin yan. Yung mga other features na na-occupy ng China at yung mga features na ino-occupy ng Vietnam, they also have established their own foothold on these features. Yung China ang iba dahil while these features may not be islands, they might be only rocks and they might only be elevations during low tide conditions. Kino-convert nila into islands. By the reclamation process. Now, ayon naman sa UNCLOS, UNCLOS is able to address that If it is a rock, or if it is an elevation, it will not change that feature into an island by making it into an artificial island. It will continue to be such a rock and an elevation feature. Now, if the UNCLOS will decide, and we are expecting them also to decide on that issue, that they will say that these islands that are occupied, these features that are occupied are not islands but are merely rocks, then ibig sabihin yan, dito sa area na ino-occupy ng China, at they have what they call this, improved that into into some facility, 12-mile lang yung territorial jurisdiction dyan. In other words, sila may effective control dyan the only way to enforce that is by might, by force. You cannot do that. There is no tribunal that can expel them out. Walang enforcement capability. No? So, sa atin din, yung Pag-asa, if it will be declared as a rock, it will just generate that 12-mile territorial limit on the basis of our occupation of that place.
So is that the same as saying na for the meantime, finders keepers muna tayo?
No, not really the same. In other words, within the case, in the context of the case that we filed at UNCLOS, we have a leeway in trying to diffuse the tension in saying, hey, kung ang pinaglabanan lamang natin dito ay, let's say, yung economic zone muna and who has overlapping claims over this economic zone. And you have to look at it that way because that's what we filed before UNCLOS. Okay. Then we have room for negotiation once the decision comes out. And we will explore that to the hilt. Right. The UNCLOS is not going to decide who owns that island. So that issue about ownership and exercise of sovereignty over these features will have to be placed on the back burner because that is not the case then. In that way, you are able to prioritize what are the issues and the problems that you will deal with and also be able to strategize on how you could resolve the dispute through peaceful negotiation.
Maybe that will be true doon sa point na yun, ano, na pinag-uusapan, yung point in case. Okay, totoo yun. But the expectations of our kababayans, lalo na doon sa positioning ng, hindi, yung amen. Nakita niyo naman siguro, alam mo naman siguro impression nun eh. Ibig sabihin, ang tinitignan ng mga tao ngayon sa gobyernong Duterte, teka, i-claim natin kung anong atin. Kung saan man dapat i-claim, kung sino man ang dapat na duminig, paano man ang dapat natin gawin, panindigan natin. Kaya nga, gusto nyo, mag-jet ski ako papunta doon. So that's something na, pag ako nanonood, ready ang presidente namin to claim what is ours. So how do you
hindi
deal
naman
with
yung sinasabi ni if you heard President-elect Duterte yesterday sa kanyang speech, sinasabi niya lamang if the decision is in our favor, and he recognizes na hindi naman issue of sovereignty or ownership, he also recognizes the limitation of the decision will be on who has exclusive rights to the economic zone in that area. Sinasabi niya, kung hindi irerespeto ng China yan, then he will go there by jet ski and defend it on his own on the basis of our claim as that being part of our exclusive economic zone, not as part of Philippine territory, because he also recognizes hindi natin pwedeng kalabanin ang China dyan. You see, and I think, and I would like to believe that China's posture here is you know, they continue to build the structures. Now, sa atin, we also have occupation of certain features and in the area. Let it be. Status quo muna yan. Now,
well, when you say status quo, you're a lawyer. When you say it's status quo, walang gagalawin.
Walang gagalawin on that issue.
Pero pagka patuloy silang nagko-construct, may ginagalaw sila.
Yun ang sinasabi natin. Then that is an area that is the concern not so much of the Philippines, but is the concern of the international community.
Okay.
Remember, even if the arbitral tribunal will decide that that area is part of our exclusive economic zone, it remains to be international waters. That will be what the international community is saying as a respect for the rule of law. Now, if China continues to build those structures, and they have threatened to build structures in the Scarborough Shoal, then that is a concern that the international community will come in recognizing that that area is international waters. Wala tayong pakialam yan. They will take action on that basis to promote their own respective national interest. It is not because of any treaty relationship or special relationship we have with the United States, because our mutual defense agreement will not kick in under those circumstances. Hindi naman natin kiniklaim na atin yan eh.
Okay.
Diba? So, yun ang sinasabi natin. Ngayon, may report na sinasabing there are two aircraft carriers flying that area. America is doing it on their own. Hindi yan because of our agreement with them. And if America disputes China on that basis and China disputes America on that basis, let it be a conflict between them that they will have to resolve between them. We cannot be caught in between because our position has always been clear. It is our exclusive economic zone, but it remains to be international water.
So parang hugas kamay na tayo doon.
Hindi
but we're part of the international community, diba?
If the international tribunal says it is our exclusive economic zone, then we must make sure that we pursue negotiations to implement that decision. We cannot, however, implement that decision or enforce the decision on the basis of force because we do not have that capability.
So how are we going to do that? Nasabihin nyo, ay, sundin mo naman tong batas. Parang awa mo na. Sundin mo naman ang batas, ganun ba?
I will not try to second guess what China will do, but I think on the basis of the mandate of the Constitution, we are obligated to resolve that dispute on a peaceful basis.
So how do you intend to resolve that sa isang mapayapang pamamaraan? Kung halimbawa ang sinasabi naman nila, hindi kami susunod dyan.
Oh.
Paano payapa pa? Hindi kami susunod dyan.
Okay.
O di sasabihin natin, ganun ba? Sige, para mapayapa, huwag na nga lang sundin. Ganun. Di ka ganun mangyayari doon, di ba?
Yeah. So una sa lahat, and I agree with you,
Yes.
paglabas ng desisyon,
Yes.
pag-aralan muna natin kung ano yung magiging desisyon.
Okay.
Anong ibig sabihin na nanalo tayo? We
Okay.
have to study that very carefully before we make any definitive statement or take any definitive action with regards to its enforcement. We must be able to study it, and we will talk to our lawyers to give us the ramifications and implications of that decision.
So hindi mo pa alam ngayon kung ano ibig sabihin ng pag nanalo tayo?
Oh yeah, because hindi natin alam kung anong magiging coverage ng decision. It can even be a decision in favor of China.
No, but what I'm saying is if we know the case that we have filed, then we should know kung ano yung magiging desisyon nito pag pumabor sa atin.
Hindi natin matitiyak dyan, Dan, dahil one of the issues na i-decide ng UNCLOS court will be ano ang natura ng mga features na yan. Is it an island? Is it a rock? Or is it just merely elevations, no? Brought about by low tide? If it is an island, then ibig sabihin, without passing jurisdiction or ownership of that island will generate a 200-mile economic zone on its own. And if that island is occupied by Vietnam or China, you will have to contend with their economic zone on that basis, 200 miles from the shoreline of that east, west, north, or south. That's how it is. No? Now, on that basis, magkakaroon ng overlapping sa economic zone natin because our shoreline also says that 200 miles into that area is also our exclusive economic zone. And this is precisely what I'm saying is an area that can be resolved through peaceful negotiations.
Okay, so kung whatever would that be, parang ang position natin ngayon from the side of the DFA, if in case you being the incoming Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, if sabihin ng China, yan ba desisyon nila? Wala akong pakialam sa desisyon nila. I will still insist on what I want. I will still insist on what I want to do and what I want to happen. So, I don't care kung may desisyon ng arbitral tribunal na nagsasabing pumapabor sa inyo. Kahit ano pang pabor ng pinag-uusapan na yan, hindi ko yan kinikilala. So, sabihin natin, okay, ganun.
But you see, in the
kasi that's the peaceful that's how peaceful would that
pero
be.
nakikita mong reality on the ground. Anong ginagawa ng China in trying to dramatize and beef up that argument? They're also trying to win the support of the other members of the international community, di ba? They're working on ASEAN, they're working on even some European countries, they're working on some African countries to support them on their move and on their claim that the Nine-Dash Line is a legitimate and valid claim. On the other hand, the Philippines, on the other hand, has also the overwhelming support of many other communities that say, hey, when the decision comes in, we will support you in pressing through peaceful negotiations the enforcement and implementation of the arbitral tribunal's decision. And that's a very, very important development in the real world. When you have that kind of pressure that will be given to China, then you will know that China cannot just act because they will have to act on the basis of their national interest. Alam naman natin that China will not just go into war if they know that they will be the biggest loser. You know, they will also try to make sure that their national interest in making this claim is also pursued. Kung counterproductive, they will not do that.
Yes.
So these are the areas, Dan, that I do not think we should be rash or emotional about in terms of expressing our patriotic or nationalistic sentiment. Dapat malaman ng taong bayan ay in trying to resolve this issue, the paramount national interest must always be the objective. If a particular action will be that susugurin natin ang China, paglaban, will that be in the national interest? That is a decision that we will have to make.
Okay. So ang atrasan natin ngayon, ito ngayon yung mga kaalyado natin. Medyo ayaw ho ng China sumunod eh. Can you help us with this? Para ma-press naman sila in a peaceful manner. So, ito naman ngayon mga nasa international community, na pumapabor naman sa atin will do their thing para i-press naman sila. Ano naman siyempre, ang kasunod naman na sasabihin nila, what is it there for me?
For whom?
For these
Filipino
countries na tutulong sa'yo. Kasi ganun ang tinitingnan ng mga tao ngayon. Magiging beholden ka dito sa mga tutulong sa'yo. Like, halimbawa, Amerika, yung mga iba't ibang mga countries na yan. Meron din silang interest. Bakit kanila tutulong? Let's face it, June.
Of course.
You were not born yesterday.
Yeah, I was not born yesterday. Like, for instance, for most of the international community that ply a trade between their country into Southeast Asia, South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea is a very critical area that they will be insisting must be preserved in terms of the freedom of navigation because that's international waters.
Yes.
Yan ang kanilang ano dyan. Imagine the trade opportunities that will be lost to them in terms of pursuing their national interest if China will say, hey, this is ours. We will not respect the decision of the arbitral tribunal.
Yes.
So you see, very, very, and I understand a big portion of international trade are forced to these international waters. Kaya yung maritime security na sinasabing, there must be joint efforts in making sure na yung piracy, other things, criminal activities that will prevent the maritime security to place must also be addressed. That is a very important what is in there for me concern for these countries. For America, also, let's face it, they have also economic interest in this area. But when they announced what is called the pivot to Asia or rebalancing to Asia, there cannot be any doubt that they also are concerned about the military implications of their presence here.
Yes.
Diba? Okay. Now, so, kailangan ma-secure yan. Whatever the military significance to them is concerned, that is their problem. All right? For us, we will respect our treaty obligations with the United States, and if our territory, like the Philippines, is attacked, or any of our public vessels in that area, in international waters, is attacked, then that is when the Mutual Defense Treaty comes into play. And that is where we say that we are firm in our obligations. We will respect our treaty arrangement in the same way that we hope that America will also respect the treaty obligations it does. But until and unless that situation comes about, the issue in the West Philippine Sea does not have any direct relevance on our agreements with the United States.
Okay, digressing a little bit dun sa ano na yan. Anong posisyon mo po dun sa kung sakaling mapag-usapan ng pagbabalik ng American bases dito sa Pilipinas?
Palagay ko, that will no longer be a possibility. Hindi na our law.
Doon sa salita na yon na American bases. But with regard to other ways, alam naman na sabi natin, there are a million ways to skin a feline. So parang yung presence nila ay mapanatili dyan. Sabi nyo nga, that's also one of their interest at alam naman natin lahat yon. Will you be a little bit lenient kesa dun sa mga nakaraang mga panahon?
Well, dapat pag-aralan na intindihin din natin that even if we have firm commitments with the United States and they have firm commitments with us pursuant to the agreements that we have entered into with them, there is always a mechanism for the review of these agreements in order to see whether or not, because of the changing times, exigencies of the situation, there is need to reassess and reevaluate our mutual interest there involved. So, there is a process for that. So, yung leniency na tinatawag natin is brought about by the fact that we have a mechanism to review this decision when the review will be felt and needed with regards to our mutual interest. So I would say that that is a concern that the agreements themselves will also address. But to say that we will be lenient in complying with our commitments if the conditions under which the commitments will arise happen, we are bound by these agreements. And this is what we say, that we will respect and be bound by these agreements.
Well, how long will you be staying sa Department of Foreign Affairs? May usapan na po ba kayo ni
Every member of the cabinet and every official of government who's appointed by the president must always understand that he serves at the pleasure of the president. To me, what is important is that when he hired me, when he asked me to serve as a member of the cabinet, I was not concerned about how long, but I was more concerned about the opportunity to serve. And I also know that having supported his candidacy, it will be hypocritical for me to say now that, hey, I support your presidency, now you've won, you want me to be part of your administration to help you achieve the objectives and programs that you have promised to people, and I say, I want out of that. That is not right. So it is on that basis that regardless of how long the president feel he needs me, I will be there, and I have accepted the job.
No, but he did not tell you that you will only be staying for a year, because after a year I will be placing somebody there and I will be looking for another place.
He never told me that. Although I am aware of the announcement that he has made initially, that he will be appointing me as Secretary of Foreign Affairs on a acting basis. That's up to him. That is his prerogative.
Well, ang isang cry ngayon na sinisigaw is change is coming. So, sa kabuuan ng administrasyong Duterte, ano ngayon ang makikita po na i-introduce ninyong pinakamalaking change sa Department of Foreign Affairs? Ang nakikita ninyo will be very significant na ito talagang in alignment with what President Duterte is saying that change is coming.
To me, the change that I will pursue and that I am committed to make sure will happen insofar as the Department of Foreign Affairs is concerned is to carry out our foreign policy on an independent, pragmatic basis where always the interests of the Philippines will be carried out. I know that one way or the other, because of the political conditions, many of our leaders in the past have succumbed to pressures in not being able to carry out an independent foreign policy. And it is on that basis that we have even been criticized internationally, that we had been biased on one side versus the other side. This, I think, is something that we must change. We must not only change our image in that respect, but we must, in fact, change the reality, because that is not what our Constitution says we should undertake our foreign policy. And this, I feel, is what can be done and should be done.
So, which was not done in the past. Yeah. And that's the biggest change that you are looking forward to.
Yes.
So now you have the...
But that it should always be, our foreign policy should always be anchored and premised on the needs and aspirations of our people.
So, ayan, ngayon yung mga kababayan natin at yung mga nanonood, ano ang pwede po ninyong iwanan sa kanila sa pagpasok ninyo bilang Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary na asahan at sisingilin sa inyo ng taong bayan?
Salamat, Dan.
Ano po ang pwede ninyong i-address sa kanila, Secretary?
Well, ito, nakapagdesisyon na tayo, kasama tayo sa desisyon ng panghalal ng ating Pangulo, at karapat-dapat lamang na susuportahin natin siya. Kahit na gaano kagaling ang ating presidente, gaano dedicated or committed to make change happen, kung wala yung tulong ng taong bayan na sila ang naglagay sa kanya para maging Pangulo ng Pilipinas, walang mangyari sa atin. We need your support, and your support is critical and essential to make real change happen.
Do you believe that the Department of Foreign Affairs is also riddled with corruption?
I do not have any reason not to believe that. Rather, I think if ever there are some corrupt practices, which we will address as we see them, on the overall, the Department of Foreign Affairs is one of the more professional and less corrupt. At least that's the impression that I have. Yeah.
Well, with you there, we will be looking forward to a more diplomatic Department of Foreign Affairs, and we know that you can actually put things into a diplomatic manner.
Pragmatic, diplomatic manner
diplomatic.
that will pursue the needs and aspirations of our people.
And there's only one thing that we can tell you: good luck.
Thank you.
And we will be praying for your success.
Yes, Dan, at mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Salamat po for the
sir.
time that you have given us. Change is coming, ha? Incoming DFA Secretary Perfecto, June Yasay. Dito lamang po sa programang Bawal ang Pikon. Get it straight with Daniel Razon.